In Genesis, God mentioned creating a firmament. But do you know what that firmament actually is? Is it a solid object? And if so, where is it now? I will actually take a bet and say that you will be surprised that the firmament is actually much more common than you think. And listen to this, the firmament actually exists till today. Now, the solution to this inconsistency might bring loads more questions to your mind, but I hope to answer all of those questions and more in this video. So let's go. God spends 1/6 of his entire creative effort, the second day, working on a solid firmament. This strange structure, which God calls heaven, is intended to separate the higher waters from the lower waters. This firmament, if it existed, would have been quite an obstacle to our space program. Genesis 1 verse 6 to 8. Now, if you don't know a lot about Genesis, then this might seem like a very tricky inconsistency to solve. But before we get into that, let's read the passage, shall we? And God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. And God made the firmament, and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. And God called the firmament heaven, and the evening and the morning were the second day. Now, the claim here is that if this firmament existed, it would have been quite the obstacle for our space programs. Also, since we don't have any evidence for this firmament, what does it mean by dividing the waters above and below the firmament? If you read your Bible like this guy or girl obviously did not, you will actually see that the answer is quite simple. From this passage, you might think that the firmament is some kind of solid object hanging in the sky with the oceans below it and some water on top of it. Maybe like the dome of a flat earth. Now, if this view was true, then of course the Bible has an inconsistency, because there does not exist something like that. But fortunately, God thought that people will make this out as an inconsistency, and he actually provided the answer to this question only 12 verses later. Let's read Genesis 1 verse 20. And God said, let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature that hath life, and fowl that may fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven. Also, let's just back up a little bit to Genesis 1 verse 14. And God said, let there be lights in the firmament of heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years. Also read Genesis 1 verse 16 to 17 if you want to see where the sun and moon are placed in the firmament. Now, you tell me, is the firmament a solid object? No, of course not. But as I mentioned earlier in this video, you might have a lot of more questions now. If the firmament is the air where the birds fly in, then what is the water above the firmament? What happened to the water on top of the firmament? And last but not least, why would people make this out as an inconsistency if it's blatantly obvious? Well, here is a theory which I believe will solve most of these problems. Except for the last question. That one's really easy to answer. The answer to that question is basically just the Bible has to be wrong, so we can think of anything to make it wrong, you know? Anyways, to the theory. Now, this theory says that there was something like an ice canopy around the Earth. And yeah, that's basically the whole theory. We will get into why the ice canopy isn't around anymore. Before you go screaming into your screen and rage quitting the video because I'm obviously dumb because there isn't something like an ice canopy around Earth, just hold on for a second, please. Now, obviously, the water below the firmament would be the oceans and bodies of water on the Earth. Another thing to just note is that the dry land didn't appear until day 3. So at this point in time, we still have a water bowl as the Earth with the ice canopy around it and the air in between them. Now, let's just go beyond our Earth for a second. What is the firmament where the stars are? Well, I happen to believe that there might be such a similar ice canopy around the universe, separating the universe from the place where God lives. You know, kind of like those snow globe things that you use as a decoration. God could be in his office in heaven being like, hey, you guys okay in there? I think just like the Trinity of God, there is a Trinity of heaven, each separated by an ice canopy. Now, of course, this is all just my speculation. I don't have any evidence for an ice canopy around the universe, and of course, this shouldn't have anything to do with your faith in God. Alright, so let me stop you from screaming into your screen right now, and let's get to the question that's been bothering you for this whole video so far. Where is this ice canopy now? Well, simply put, this ice canopy was destroyed in Noah's flood. How do we know this? Well, in Genesis 7 verse 11, we read that the fountains of the deep broke open and the windows of heaven were opened. This could indicate that massive amounts of debris were shot up into the sky, into this ice canopy, canopy, breaking it apart. Alright, so this has been quite a discussion, but I think I have covered everything to explain this inconsistency and to explain why I don't think it is really inconsistent at all. Now, I've made my case, so let's look at this inconsistency once more. Here it is in a logical argument form. Premise 1, God made a solid firmament on day 2. Premise 2, God calls this structure heaven and it separates the water above it and the water below it. Premise 3, we have been to space. Conclusion, this structure would have been a problem for our space programs, therefore it does not exist. Now, right off the bat, premise 1 is obviously not true. The firmament is not a solid object, it is air, and as far as I know, air is not solid. Premise 2 is true, however. Also, I don't think this premise is necessary for the argument to be made, so let's just throw that one in the bin. Premise 3 is true. I know there are some conspiracy theory people out there saying that the moon landing was fake, but I do believe we went to space, so I'm gonna keep that premise in this argument. Since all of the premises were not 100% accurate, the conclusion is false. So let's rework it. Premise 1 we will make, God made the firmament, or the air, for the birds to fly in, and for the stars to shine in. Premise 2, God divided the heavens by placing something made of water in between them, so to separate the waters above and below. Premise 3, we have been to space. Premise 4, the water layer above was destroyed in Noah's flood. Conclusion, the firmament was made on day 2, it separated the waters above and below it. The waters above it, the ice canopy, was destroyed in Noah's flood, and since the firmament is air, it therefore presents no problem to our space program. As is the common theme with these inconsistencies, all you have to do to debunk them is to read the Bible. Now, just as a quick summary, remember, you are walking through the firmament daily, so it cannot present a problem for our space program. Of course, the ice canopy was once there, but it was destroyed in Noah's flood, so it can also not present a problem for our space program. So there you have it, brothers and sisters, my take on this inconsistency and why it's just really a consistent inconsistency. If you're interested to see that the fact that plants can do photosynthesis could be an inconsistency in the Bible, please watch the next video in this series. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.